Okay, let's open the meeting of the Cold Spring Zoning Board of Appeals. My name's Eric Worth, the chair. We have a quorum here tonight, 4 out of 5 members. First thing on the agenda is a discussion of the draft generic environmental impact statement about the Fjord Trail. The Board of Trustees of Cold Spring have asked the planning board and the ZBA to submit any comments they have about the environmental impact statement. And comments that reflect the purview of the board. So this is so that they asked us to give them something in writing. And it doesn't mean that we have to all agree on one idea or set of ideas. It can be a list of thoughts, potentially different thoughts, contradictory thoughts, and it will be, the trustees will turn it over to the consultant they've hired. They've hired Ted Fink, a professional planner, to consolidate comments, all the village comments from all the boards, and to review the statement itself and to synthesize every one document to be submitted to the state that's conducting the review, the state office of Parks Recreation. So I just envision a kind of open-ended sharing of thoughts about it's an enormous document. It is repetitive. It's many sections are repeated, and we're mainly concerned with the portion that in the village itself, which is just actually a small part of the entire trail, stretching from the village limit just a little north and south of Little Stony Point. And the proposal is to end the trail at Dockside Park. That's the preferred path. Preferred by the planners of the trail, Hudson Highland Fjord Trail Inc. That's what they're asking for. But they do present alternatives. Those were made for interesting consideration. Alternative routes. You look like you.
Well, there are different sections that this sort of gives a breakdown, and Mayor Foley sort of gave us a little backdrop of some of, if you remember
Right,
that.
yes, she singled out some of the sections as possibly more relevant to ZBA expertise. So
should we go through just
okay, that's a good idea.
With a lead.
Yeah, let me let's see if I have that message. Yeah, I think I do.
Email.
Yeah. I have it. Who's your email with the data? January 10th.
And this FYI, by cross comparing what we were sent, and some of these items seem to be. So I'll listen to what we may omit that might actually be here too as well. I'll first let you roll through.
Yeah, I have that list now. The first highlights chapter 4A, which is called Land Use and Zoning. So that is the closest to what we work on, and the conclusion presented in the statement is that there are no implications or no detriments or no violations zoning, and, I think that's correct. The trail crosses two districts, two different zoning districts in Cold Spring. Transportation District, which is what the train tracks run on, and then the Parks and Recreation, which is Dockside Park. But, state agencies are exempt from local zoning. Just always, it's one of the principles of state law, and so, they, and both of these properties are owned by state agencies, the MTA, and the Dockside is owned by the state Parks Department. So, basically, they're free to do whatever they want from the zoning point of view. They don't have to worry about compliance with our zoning restrictions on those properties. So, we really have no zoning issues. The plan does not present any zoning issues.
So it reads like this section describes land uses and zoning within the adjacent, within and adjacent to the trail corridor. Okay, so you, as you mentioned, they may do two. The primary one is along the riverside that they wish to do from Dockside to Little Stony Point and then continue north. The other one is like a secondary trail, Fair Street, which has been used, potentially developed.
Oh, yeah, right, that's, they're proposed that as a meander or a,
So it's actually going to be used and or publicized as such.
I guess, they don't really say what they mean when they say, we'll make it a meander. Like, what, in practical terms, what does that mean? A lot of signs or painting a yellow stripe on the sidewalk? They don't say, but, I assume,
Secondary route to get to same location.
yeah, I guess they will present it
Alternate
maybe on maps and in their guides as something you could do if you're walking as an alternative way to get around. They invite you, or they'll invite. Yeah, that would, cross other zoning districts.
And so it goes further here. So it says it analyzes the proposed fjord trails consistency with adopted local planning documents. So it intends to try to reflect what the intent is by our own documents. But as you mentioned correctly up front, that there is no enforcement by this agency or the village as against, property owned by the state parks. So, and it also, it says both planning documents and zoning laws, that it's trying to stay consistent with these localities that are, within the zone of the trail. And it also identifies historic fill areas, remediation sites, landfills within the trail corridor, and describes land uses, which land uses may be impacted by the development of the proposed fjord trail. Like one example of a use that may be impacted would be Mayor's Park. It is park, it's public park. And
Village Park.
yeah, and currently you can sort of look out and see the water, depending on where you move to. But the minimum specs has been related over time. The platform along the water will be 5 feet above the rail line and then 8 feet of fencing above that. The need for the fencing, which you don't see along the West Side Battery Park Trail, is because there's no train that runs down along, west side of Manhattan. So that's why the fencing would be high. And so you will not see the river except through a structure. And as you look at it, say if you're at the basketball court, if you look straight at the rail, which I went and looked at, it's about 4 feet up on the basketball stanchion where it meets the rail line. You take 5 feet up above that, it's about a foot shy of or less of
The basketball hoop.
the rim,
Yeah.
and then you take 8 feet above that.
Wow.
Take 8 feet above that. So now, what's interesting about this, and on the impact statement, here's the impact statement. But if you look at it, there is no image, there's no artist rendition of any view site from along the east shoreline between here and Cold Spring, at whether it's water level or say 70 feet up. There's no artistic rendition of what it would look like to try to look at the river through it. And they show other ones,
As they would.
but this is sort of, there was at Dutchess Manor, they went through a bunch of slides and they went through it. They accidentally put up a slide that literally had Mayor's Park. And it looked like the Berlin Wall in front of it. And they moved it real quick and they said, everybody goes, well, what was that? Can you go back to that? Can you go back to that? And they're like, oh, no, this is just in development stage. So,
Well, is the proposed, I know the fence is mandated, according to the statement, the fence is mandated by Metro North for safety. It used to be a barrier between the tracks and the hikers. But it doesn't say whether the fence would be solid or not. They, on their website, they show it here as an open, like a chain link type fence. But they don't say in words, one way or the other.
and what's interesting is this does not indicate whether the tracks are immediately over here. Like for instance, as you go further north, and if you take a look, so there's Storm King. And this would potentially be Breakneck, but you can't tell if this is north of Little Stony Point. Because as you get from Little Stony Point further up, there is much more of a separation, and that's why the fencing can be lower. There's not only a separation, but there's also water, little pockets of water. So anyway, again, it would be interesting to my interest is what it would look like if you've been here for 1,000 years or since the glaciers were here, what it would look like from the shoreline.
Yeah.
Where people come to the river and to just look at the river and how that will be impacted.
You mean from someone standing in Mayor's Park, looking toward the river?
Mayor's Park, again, east of the railroad tracks, just looking out to the river, whether it's all the way up to 9D going up to Dutchess Manor.
It'll be going up to the tunnel. It'll be a boardwalk out on the water from Little Stony Point to, when it wraps around the tunnel, it'll be
Yeah, it's sort of,
over the water.
it's indicated in these maps. So it's gonna run along the water. And I think the bridge is to help link people into the mountains. And there's also a drop down, but again, it's on the path.
I agree that we do a list of, what we're experts at is weighing pros and cons or benefits versus detriments. I think that definitely in the list of detriments would be this fence. People can see from either side, people on the river, like voters and so on, will see it on their side. People on land are seeing from their side. And to me, it's a big question of whether the fence is solid or not. It just doesn't say it.
And again, this is sort of, now here's an example. And this is where the rail, if you take a look, it looks like it's about 3 feet, 3.5 feet, right? Up against these people. And both sides, right? But what they do is they show you a bend. Now this bend, where they explain it in some of the ports, is because there are areas where there's outflow of water, those little bays that we have,
Yep.
like right across from your house. So the fact that it cannot go immediately along the tracks there, that means the trail has to be kept out so that it doesn't affect tidal flow. They can put the rails lower. And so that's why they show this rendition, but they
I
won't
didn't see
show.
that picture in the PDF.
And again, this is Storm King, so I would assume, and that looks like Breakneck. So this is it's like a picture of it. And here is the other indicators here about where they have the trail line, right? There's something.
What section?
Most of this lower part, this all lower part here. This is all the Cold Spring to little Breakneck. That's what these first 400 pages cover. So they separated just the two zones, 2 mile zone from Dockside to Breakneck. Okay, and then there's a 5.5 mile run of the trail from Breakneck to Beacon. And so they call it north-south, and that's how they usually get people zoned in on where they're talking right about. So again, what I personally found a little bit troubling was that they talk about this being the final statement and for you to comment on the impacts. And I think an impact that would be of concern to many people, I mean, I would imagine, is what it would be like to be standing down near the water's edge and looking out, and how much the river do you see? Is there an obstruction? I mean, some of the renditions we saw, it wasn't, it had everybody in the Duchess Manor Hall going, oh my God, what's that? And so it's a deliberate reason why it's not in here. Because they have it.
No.
They have an artist rendition of it.
Yeah. It's,
Now, if you went through the first, it's 400 pages, but you can page almost right through it. I can probably find it's in section 4. What they'll do is to show you and sort of minimize the visual impact is they'll take, first they say, looking from Mayor's Park to the west, looking from the west at 218 back east towards Cold Spring. But they take these very high 400 feet level shots and looking down west. So it makes the fence look like, minuscule, but it doesn't really give you the impact of what it would be for a normal human being, not at 400 feet, to see what is the real impact. And again, I think people come here is to see the river. I mean, the mountains are great. You've got the combination of water and mountains, but to have the view shed of the water sort of wiped out, and especially there's another thing to consider. If you look at it linear, if you look at it perpendicularly straight across east-west, you'd see, segments of water through the structure. But if you look from the north to the south and you're at sea level or 10 or 20 feet above, well, you're not gonna see any river. It's gonna be stanchion after stanchion after stanchion. It's almost as if you're doing a painting. You're trying to show a view a mile away, and everything becomes narrower and tighter together. And that was disclosed.
Just in general of what I was able to read in this and this discussion, I mean, because in the plan, it talks about, oh, the beautiful river, the beautiful scenic elements, and we want to preserve that, and we want people to be able to enjoy it. Well, I think the perspective of this project is they want the people to enjoy it who are walking on the trail. They're not thinking about the people who aren't walking on the trail, whether they be villagers or people who come to the village who aren't. Okay, go ahead.
That is precisely the point.
Okay.
They're saying, oh, we're gonna open up this great view for everybody.
Yeah.
But they take it from everybody who's on the land.
Yeah, and not just the people who live here either. I mean, it's just everyone, but people.
Well, I'm not saying just for the people who live here.
Yeah,
It's anybody who appreciates the river and
Yeah.
comes up here to hike,
Yeah.
and just looks out at the river. And, it's something that all you're asking is that they be upfront and give you a
Yeah.
rendition of
Yeah.
what it will be. But how do you comment on something you cannot see? They don't provide.
yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is I saw it.
has anybody made a request for those photos?
I think the Protect the Highlands might have done it. I'm not really, previous to fully what they have done. But the comment also back often has been, it's under, design review.
Mm.
But here's the final, this is the last opportunity we have to say anything,
Yeah.
but there's nothing to say. It's like, look at these pictures from way far away. Look at how small the fence looks, from 2 miles away at a height of 400 feet. I'll give you an example rather than just talk about it. I went through the whole thing and took photographs. Trying to think of what copy I have here. There's 2 copies. There's 2. This is volume 2, so volume 1 has it. So that's Cold Spring right there. I'll find that real quick. It's in section 4.
There's the alternate routes there.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, so here are the alternate routes. All right, and again, it's Fair Street, what it is typically at this point already. But it was in section 4, and I'll give you an idea of how they show it. They say these are the visual impacts. Okay, I remember it was up around 9, E9. Bear with me. So apart from that, as I'm looking, any other thoughts about it? You were saying, and but
No,
what you were saying is exactly what I was thinking.
Well, and what you're saying is sort of the lack of information there.
That's all.
I should have highlighted it, but I was having so much trouble with the document. If somebody has a PDF, if they could send it to me. I'm trying to look at it on their website, and it's very difficult to navigate. But
Okay.
there just seems to be a real lack of information, and it
Here.
just, when they don't have all the information, they sort of dismiss it. And the one example I can think of is the village paying for the electricity of the bathrooms at Dockside Park. And I know that's a really teeny little thing in the context of this overall project, but to me, it was a real example because they're like, oh, well, the village already does this and this and this at Dockside. If anybody remembers I don't even remember where it was. Village already does this, and it wouldn't cost much more to just provide for the electricity at the bathrooms. And I was thinking, well, as a percentage of this village's budget, it may be a little more than what's being assumed here. And what I would like to see is how much would that be and what kind of impact would that have on the village budget? And so they make these assumptions like, oh, well, it's going to be a fence, but it's going to be okay. And they say that in here, like, oh, well, the village will
It's
just
basically,
pay for this.
trust me.
Yeah,
That's what it is. And we're not going to show you, but trust us.
yeah.
So-
Anyway, that's concern I had as I was reading through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll show you guys, like,
Okay.
for instance, here's Mayor's Park. Here are the basketball courts. I'll just pass it around. Here are the basketball courts. Okay, there's no rendition of the fence, but you can see the basketball court. There's the rim, because you see the rail right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so they said because of the global warming and the sea rise, they want to go 5 feet above the rail. So that was the minimum. They don't want to redo this. So that brings you up near the rim. And you go from that rim and you go up another 8 feet. Look where that takes you. It takes you
Yeah.
5 feet above the top of the backboard, and look at what it does at water level, what it takes the view up.
It's bad. Look better. Section 4.
Yeah, it's section 4G,
Oh, you're in the weird document I was trying to look.
section 4G4 photographs.
Or figure 4G4.
Figure 4G4 Mayor's Park. But I'm just not speaking about Mayor's Park. It's all the way up, until you get beyond, you get to the area of Duchess Manor where 90 rises to go to Duchess Manor. At that point, the trail is staying low and is not impactful to view, but again, it has nothing to do with Cold Spring. Do you see how that would appear?
Oh, yeah. Very much clear. You're very clear.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And here are the comments. Take a look at this. Go to talks here. You like, let's see. there's a discussion of, oh, here's another one, right? See, now you see how they come up from a higher level looking down, but again, there's no real rendition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, there's no shoreline on the east looking west. That's west looking east. And let's see, I just want to get you the one comment so you can read it on the, they basically, oh, no wonder I can't read it that well, it's upside down. Like, ah, it's hurting my head. All right,
That you can read them, I guess.
getting close.
Okay.
Finished that big report today. Let me see what chapter we're at. We're at G, so I gotta stay in G. Here we go. This, it's on G9, 4G9. Top, Mayor's Park. This is where you live. So this is the impact statement of what they say from Mayor's Park looking west.
Mhm.
And they basically, they minimize everything. They first talk about, oh, there's telephone poles and there's other things, so this should not be of any serious impact.
Telephone.
There's one telephone pole, because when the train went off the rails back 10 years ago, and people died, they had to put in a tracker. You know, and this is one of the poles they put in, but you really can't see it. It's one pole. You saw it right in the beginning when it was fresh, whitish wood, but now it's like weathered like almost any other telephone pole.
yeah, I remember when they put that pole in, yeah. I remember when they put the pole in to put the lights for popcorn and football, and then
Yeah.
football fell out of fashion.
Yeah.
Now, they're used.
So what do you think of those? What do you make of what's your
Of your
summary?
comments? Well, I mean, you know, when elephants fight, the grass gets trampled, and the people who live on Fair Street's the grass, and they're view, like they just don't kind of care, and they're gonna obscure it to the best of their ability. It's just kind of what companies do. We're trying to push an agenda, and I don't know what this board's ability or what our ability as Cold Springers are to, you know, to stop them from doing it. Certainly, we can comment on. I see people outside my street every day, every weekend, taking photos of this amazing Storm King. I mean, there's just queues and queues of people just taking photographs, and without question, a big fence would obscure that. What we as a board can do to comment and change it, I mean, I don't know. I would love them to consider.
Maybe we can Submit that comment.
Yeah,
It's very important that we comment.
Yeah.
And it would be even better if, again, if we had the actual artist rendition.
Yeah.
Of what you're actually seeing, so you can have but you can trust when I tell
yeah,
you
no,
about the impact.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
in the room who
And
has.
their comment on all those people who take photographs on our street right now would be like, well, they're gonna be on the Fjord Trail. And I don't know that that's necessarily an improvement.
Are you talking about people on Fair Street?
Fair Street,
Like
yeah.
where the parking used to be? or-
Yes, that's correct.
Well, yeah, a little beyond that, where the lagoon is,
Yes.
like where the pines are.
That's right.
Everyone stops there. They sit on the rocks, they take photos, they do selfies. They love that lagoon. They love that view from there. It's one of our top attractions, just that little lagoon. I actually kind of mind the grass there. I have my landscaper kind of mow the grass there, so it's not overgrown.
It's got a
Because
bench too there, doesn't it?
it doesn't, maybe in the park, yeah. So, I mean, I know it's an important, you know, and even if there is a Fjord Trail, people will continue to walk on Fair Street and they will lose that ability, you know? And not to mention the residents will lose, you know, the.
The
view
ones
that
across
we'll
the
enjoy.
street from you on the street.
Yeah, the people on the west side of the street will really have a tough time. I remember they built that little shed that was out there. It was right in the way of that neighborhood over there, those three houses. Yeah, no, without question.
I mean, I could say this just only from experience. I know one or two people on the board, you know, with the trail. And they got all upset when it was proposed that somebody would put a billboard sign on Route 9 within about 2 blocks of where they live. And they thought that was disruptive. And now they're part of this.
Okay, well,
Interesting.
that's the fence. Other points, other issues or,
So, let's see. And so it talks about land ownership, management, and maintenance. Section describes the land ownership within or adjacent to the trail corridor that may be impacted. So this is not only, well, again, it's view shed, so we both talked about Mayor's Park, which is public, and then there's private homes. So that's part of the land ownership management. See, long term, okay, see land described, but, okay, there's issues about geology, soils, everything. I mean, in listening, just offhand, the Riverkeeper, has anybody heard of Riverkeeper?
Sure.
Okay, so the person who spoke on behalf of Riverkeeper, was very negative. Simply saying this is going to really impact a lot. And, was very descriptive, only knowing what this person knows. And, so I was pretty much, shocked to hear it, in a sense that it took a brave person to do that, because they were all sort of, in the environmental realm. And so it takes a lot to stand up and say something.
Mm.
But the person, has the expertise in the water habitats, species, the what do you call it? The marshes, everything, part of water habitats. And also, egress and back and forth of regular animals down of water side. So that's just one thing I heard. See, land, geology, water. So one issue, what about, I mean, last year we were on water restrictions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what if we just have a ton of people? What's gonna happen with this sewer treatment plant gonna have to handle a lot more? I mean, I don't know how do you, where do people find relief?
I think the bathrooms aren't gonna be connected into the
yeah, they
sewer
said it'd
system.
be composting toilets.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
Is that what it said?
It's
Okay.
just-
yeah,
So it's
they're not gonna use the,
Basically, it's a septic. It just kind of goes into the soil and spread out.
Okay, well, that's a plus. I mean, so yeah, I didn't pick that up, but you did. Thank you. But what about the fact that people use water?
Yeah, not connected to a sewer that takes it away from roads.
Right.
Many houses have.
Anyway, again, I
Okay.
think that's more of a planning
Okay.
issue.
Septic fields.
Go ahead, with, anything you want to
Yeah,
carry.
Like that concrete bed in the back?
Yeah,
Sometimes they do it like that, okay.
yeah. Kind of spreads the poop out.
Well, one of the chapters is called recreational
Open space.
and open space resources. So, under that heading, I would, point to the pluses that the Fiord Trail would bring.
Mhm.
Expansion of recreational access to the waterfront. Residents requested in the comprehensive plan. Creation of the only opportunity in Phillipstown to bicycle free of hills. Creation of the only opportunity in Phillipstown for seniors and people with impaired mobility to have hiking experience. And new car-free transportation route. And, new measures to mitigate vehicle and pedestrian crowding. New measures to stabilize the shoreline and replace invasive vegetation with native vegetation. And new public restrooms and bicycle repair platform, dockside park without any cost to the village. Except for electricity, lighting.
well, I know that's a small thing, but
And you're reading direct,
Some notes I took.
right? Oh, you
As
took,
I
okay,
was reading it,
yeah,
I
okay,
was noting the pros and the cons.
right.
Those are the pros.
Well, there's a lot of legitimacy to all of it. Again, it's just a matter of whether everything is upfront and in order for people to properly comment
yeah.
on how we might want it designed. But, absolutely, it's not ignoring, some of the assets it could bring.
And I think the other negatives, in addition to the fence, is increased burden on emergency services. They kind of soft pedal that, but they do say there will be greater calls for emergency help. But and there will be increased trash, obviously, from the village throughout the village. Just going to be greater burden of trash and recycling. Increased burden on infrastructure. There'll be more graffiti in the tunnel. You know,
Does the report say how many people visit Cold Spring currently and how many they would expect to visit with this?
They give a number,
Estimate.
yes, they give a number of what they estimate. They have formulas and there's a whole science to this. And the answer they come up with, and they're looking at the year 2033. That's what they see as, they see the trail being finished in 2031, but the first year or two, they don't think it's gonna be, they think it's gonna be like not atypical, either more than usual or less, depending on how the publicity and so on. But they think by 2033, things will settle down. At that point, they anticipate 268,700 new annual visitors. So that's per year, which translates into 1,710 daily visitors on a weekend day, spread out throughout the day, which means 347 per hour, per peak hour, 347 new visitors drawn by the trail. That's the entire trail, north and south,
Yeah.
from Beacon.
So
up to
And this is just talking about the waterside trail, no other uses going up into the mountains, everything. That's basically what.
Yeah.
Additional, yeah.
Well, they describe this as anticipated increased visitation to the project area. So project area, I get that. I'm sure they don't mean Main Street, Cold Spring, that is part of that.
Okay, so interesting. So they said increased, attendance here in this area. So currently the numbers each year annually for here, before this is built, right now, 500,000.
So that's an increase of.
So you're looking at 750,000, according,
75, yeah.
But this is, so this is the year 2033. I take this with a grain of salt, because who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these factors.
And that's always a struggle with these things too, like, oh, it'll only take 6 years to put all these pylons in. Well, are you sure? Like, yeah, we're gonna truck it in. We're gonna truck it in over the bridge, like all these disruptions that are, of course, they're gonna minimize, the perception of what they think the impact would be, but it could be a real fallout. Construction's never, one of the reasons I moved from the Upper East Side when they started the 125th Street line, I left, I sold my apartment because it's gonna be 15 years of construction.
Wow, like a train line?
Yeah, they extended the Second Avenue line,
Are you talking about the
59th
subway,
Street subway line.
subway?
Yeah, they had part of a line that was never completed and it was a good 20+ year project, and so Second Avenue became a construction zone. So that's the difficult thing about these projects.
And you do live with it because it takes about a decade at least,
They say 6 years, what if it's 10?
So, just a note here, one of these says, because we basically referred to it already, but it is a separate section that's called scenic resources that refers to the visual character of the trail corridor, meaning the Hudson Highlands scenic area of statewide significance. And that's exactly what this is termed to be. And so, I mean, this is where the Hudson River painters came, here on all the way up to Alana.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something important. Like, I'm not sure if the artist would have envisioned,
Boardwalk.
a boardwalk. Yeah, if it's in fact impactful, but because I mean, there weren't trails probably back then, not serious trails. People just didn't have the gear to do it. But so they would be looking from the water side. I mean, I have old paintings and everything that show people walking along the water side, and literally right in front of where my house is. Well, it was nothing but a sandy shore.
Yeah, the ball fields were the city dump.
Yeah, that was after they filled it.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was a bay,
Yeah.
and that was in the 1800s, early 1800s to 1840. So anyway, it's referred to as a statewide scenic significant area, and then it talks about noise and air resources.
Yeah, that seems to be focused on the construction phase.
I know some of the planning board evaluated like some of that data. I'm not quite sure if you guys wanna cross-check with them if
Yeah,
that
I'm
would be
sure they-
useful.
Probably focus more on that than
We should, yeah, because that's getting beyond us, yeah.
Would the planning board also be the one that's gonna focus on the traffic?
I'm
Right.
sure, yes, yeah. That's
That's
another.
the other thing, they're just like, oh, well, maybe we'll put in a roundabout at,
Right.
where
where
was it?
fair meets
Yes.
90.
Yeah, and I mean, it just seems so flippant. I mean,
Well, they list mitigation measures,
yeah, okay,
so that's one of them.
one of, like, they think, but that. It's the same with the impact on emergency services. That's another one that I would be a lot more concerned about, because it's already a big impact on our emergency services during the summer to begin with. And they did say that they think that the people, like, they're gonna improve the trail on Breakneck, and they're gonna have trail helper, Stewart, thank you, Stewart, which is great. I mean, that's really good, but I would be a little more concerned about that. And I don't know whose concern is that?
With regards to,
Emergency services.
well, again, that would be sort of planning, but also I would think it would be Fjord Trail's concern that they would want to provide some subcontractors to be available if they're going to be collecting money and looking for 501c donations. They're inviting people to here. They're increasing the numbers, and for us to take the burden, as taxpayers.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it would be great if if the Parks Police would open an office. They talk about the Parks Police as one of the agencies that provides, and the nearest one is down in Westchester. And they said it would take 39 minutes for anyone from that office to get up here
Yeah.
in the event of an emergency. So they'll be the last ones to arrive. But it would be a nice touch.
That's a really good
Yeah,
idea.
to have that, given, and certainly there's gonna be more people on this trail, on Fjord Trail, than there is probably anything in Westchester.
And Westchester has more available resources, really, for the most part. We're more spread out here. I mean, Beacon would certainly have more, and into Newburgh, but, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, less people are gonna hurt themselves on this trail.
Oh, that's true.
Like.
Oh,
they
this
will-
trail, yeah.
So like, but the thing is, you're increasing total people by 50%, and how many people are gonna go up into, where you get hurt is when you go to the hills. I've almost broke my ankle
Yeah.
lots of times.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
being on the trail, how dangerous could be on a boardwalk?
I'm
I've
not-
never hurt myself on a boardwalk.
I'm not worried about
But,
that.
but you are increasing by 50%, so are part of that 50% gonna go up into the hills, and that's where you get hurt, and so.
Well, I think, if I may speak freely, you also have to kind of measure their intended audience. Their intended audience is the physically impaired and the elderly. That
Oh,
poses a
yeah,
higher
people.
risk. I mean, like I said, you can't imagine how you can get hurt on a boardwalk, but if you're already impaired in some kind of manner.
Old people are speaking as one, gonna have strokes, they're gonna have heart attacks. I mean, it's gonna be an impact
It's not,
on
it's
our,
not just the boardwalk, there's.
Yeah.
There are climbing features as part
Oh,
of the trail, like
yeah.
areas where you step down by the water.
No, no,
And considering
Oh,
everything with actual accessibility guidelines, I think that's also important to consider.
Yeah. The other thing is, you touched on, Robert, you put some out, lighting that may be at night over this trail.
There will be no lighting, they say.
Okay, no impact of lighting. I thought they had said that, or if they put lighting on, it'll be the caps
Yeah, read it,
that sort of project downward.
It says no lighting, period.
That's great, because there is a serenity of the night looking out at that.
I got a street light right in front of my house, so I.
there is gonna be lighting in certain places. Not necessarily like, it's not gonna be a lit up trail. I can't remember where it was, frankly, in this, but I did read that there were some like access points in certain places where there was gonna be lighting, but it's gonna be lighting that looks down, is what I read.
Yeah, like they used
I
to.
mean, I don't know,
have
but
it. the docket.
Yeah,
Oh, dark, they talk about comply with dark sky.
That's it.
I can, should
that's,
be able,
yeah, that's,
should be able to search for that term.
Okay.
See what they were, why they said that.
and comply with the dark sky means that they're not gonna shoot it up.
Yeah, that's a standard.
Or let it
for-
go horizontal, it only
It's
projects down.
downward, like what they put, the new lighting at the dock now. You can have an example of that.
Yeah, not be negative on birds, things like that lighting,
Yeah,
that
there's a,
light pollution.
in the executive summary, there's a paragraph called electricity and lighting.
I got noise, quality.
Any new lighting associated with Fjord Trail North would be dark sky
Yeah.
compliant.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I've been hearing, and I think I had read it, so I agree with that. Oh, here we go, electricity and lighting, section 3M1, infrastructure. And there's two sections, there's also M4, so there's M1 and M4, M3.
I think M2 also mentioned your trail south as well.
It mentions what?
Your trail south.
Yeah, oh,
Infrastructure.
It seemed to say that the lighting would be associated with restrooms and the parking lots.
Okay,
so what else did you pick up on this, Eric, Mary Ann? What did you?
Yeah, we all know the fence, congestion at the end of Main Street, parking. Just length of construction. It's all, will all these things be followed through on? Will they all go to they say only 50% increase? Will all these things go to the plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they started it, down at Sandy Point, away from our village, but I guess I don't know how much control we have over that.
Well,
Other than just
it
comment.
still may be an option, because this is probably one of the most residential impacted areas that you would have for the view shed impact. Again, it has not been shown, but it has been sort of acknowledged, but subtly. So net of it is, if they started it at Little Stony Point, it wouldn't impact as many residences or people who are hiking per se, because they're starting, when it goes across Little Stony Point, it's not going to go on the rim of Little Stony Point. It's going to go through, it goes through it. And then it runs along the rail. So what's the people missing out would be those driving on that gate between that breakneck. And then from breakneck north to the Duchess Rise.
Yeah.
So, and so first of all, it talked on M1, it talked about a solar farm source on Dennings Point to provide electricity for the lighting. And I'm looking for M4 to see what it says with regards to the nature of the lights. Here we go. Electricity and lighting, the buildings point note. Okay, Dennings Point lighting for Notches Hill. It's not saying anything specific. Doesn't say anything about the night sky, the lighting that you referenced to.
I think it might be try M2.
M2?
At least that's where I found the south one, because any new lighting associated with your trail south would be dark sky compliant and would generally be down facing.
And you're looking at M2. I'm now looking at M2 as well.
It's right under table 4 M2, electricity and lighting.
or you might be in 3, which is the North Star.
Oh, table 4. Yeah, initially it told me to go to 3. So
Oh.
this is for M2?
Right below that, electricity and lighting.
Okay, see? That's why you need a lot of people looking at this. I mean, I went to lighting and it took me to section 3.
Not very user friendly. Even the book.
Yeah, even with the book. While you're looking for that, I thought it was interesting that there was, again, I don't remember where it was in this document, but a discussion about the sales tax revenue.
Well, that's
And
point.
I thought it was actually a very good discussion and it explained it really well. about how, you know, Beacon doesn't have the same issue that Cold Spring has with sales tax revenue sharing. And I'm just saying, I just thought that was very interesting.
Right, Beacon's money goes right to Beacon, right?
The Westchester, or, yeah,
No,
No, it-
the Dutchess County.
I know my geography,
Yeah.
sort of.
No, that's.
That just does share, like it's like it was said, like out of so many, you know, counties in New York, the certain number share and a certain number don't share. And Putnam is one that doesn't share. And so they were very careful to say that an advantage of this is to increase sales tax revenue to Putnam County. And whereas in Beacon, it's increased sales tax revenue to Beacon and Fishkill too.
Good point.
I don't know why I thought that was good that they explained it that way, because a lot of people don't understand that. And that's why a lot of people don't understand why people in the village don't love having a forest, you know?
Mm.
I wish there was some opportunity to fix that, but I know people.
Yeah, I
are
was
working on
thinking, I
it
was
for a
trying to
really
think of
long
that.
Money off of that.
I was literally thinking of just what you were saying. I was thinking, why doesn't Cold Spring, if Carmel's not gonna send us any money, you know, tack on our own 1% or 2% on top of the 8, make it 10%. You know, sort of tax people out of the location, just like your parking, you know, costs of.
Well, when
keeping
they,
people back.
when they do finish the Airbnb or the short-term rental rules, the village will be getting, revenue from those rentals, which is, you know, that will be helpful. But-
Yeah, but I think that stuff is self-reported, so that's based on whatever the host, you know, want to tell. the
Um,
to post.
And I was on that. I think that they are looking at ways to make sure people are accountable, you know, because
To the
if you
neighbors.
advertise on the website, that's gonna be monitored and
Mhm.
they're gonna be able to see if you have guests staying. and-
Yeah, I think, yeah, you are correct about that. It's just that stuff also costs us money. So, you know, in turn to collect the money, we have to,
Oh, yeah.
because we have to get the software to scrape that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the village is a little bit frustrated about that.
Oh, really? Oh. Yeah.
You know, it's funny, Abigail, I still haven't seen it. I'm on section 4M2. And I'm just curious finding it, seeing if I can actually find it, about the night sky lighting. Here, maybe, Robert, you can see it. That looks like section 4M2, right? That's what you told me?
Yeah, there should be a table of some sort, and right
Oh, it's
below
in a
that table,
Oh, okay.
not quite sure which section. Lighting, any new lighting associated with Fjord Trail South,
Oh, so it's in a table itself. Okay.
Right
Thank-
below the table.
Okay.
You were off by a few pages.
Okay, so it was M3.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh, apologies.
no. Down
Are
facing.
we, so,
But it says would be generally down facing.
Is that, law language, like
Yeah.
just to
Oh,
say
is
that?
that it?
Just
Called
in case we
hedging.
want to put you in a spotlight.
So, Eric, what are the particular areas you think that, because, I mean, I just have opinions. I don't know if they're within the framework that,
I don't think we really have, I mean, the CBA is a appellate body, we hear appeals from residents. We don't really, we're not really experts on anything. We just have the same opinions as anyone else
yeah.
outside of zoning itself. So, you know, I don't really know how to frame this response.
I think the way you did it right up front is the way to do it. You simply say that, you know, we really don't have jurisdiction to, you know, hold them to any particular codes of this area, obviously, and, you know, New York State can handle
Yeah.
things as, so it prefaces it right up front what the reader can expect going down. But what they're looking for, I think, from our body is what are the concerns that we look for in zoning? And a lot of it is, visual impact, size of structures, setbacks.
Community character, neighborhood,
Well, community character, yeah, sure.
neighborhood. I mean, and that's where maybe we could talk about the impact on, like we talk about, well, what's the impact on the character of the neighborhood if they build whatever? We talk about that all the time. And
Well, we did talk about that tonight, at least with
That's
regard to the fence.
that's true, that the visual,
You can open it up, but like, whilst we understand that our, our comments on this situation are superseded by the desires of the state of New York, we have, as a body, been in charge of keeping the character of our community for the last X amount of years. And in keeping with the character of our community, we think it's important that we state our comments that we've observed in our diligence as to negative effects in so much as they're in the village of Cold Spring. This would be a fence, this would be congestion. These are the comments that we see. We understand it has we have no ability to enforce this, but we think the state of New York should hear from the community.
I think you're right on to something. That we know our community better than they do. And so they're trying to say, well,
We've been entrusted to speak for the community, and
right.
in so much as we represent the community, we've always fences a certain level, houses a certain color, when setbacks a certain way.
And a certain
And we
extent,
know we don't have the thing, but as a state, we think it's valuable that you listen to this village's, comments from the people who have been entrusted to do this.
So in what way is community character negatively impacted in addition to the fence?
I think by
And positively, if any of us think it's.
yeah, I think, well, I was gonna go there too, but negatively impact, there's traffic, there's just,
Crowding.
the crowding, and the number of people. There will be added expenses to the village.
That's not community character.
Okay, sorry.
there will
You're right.
be, there's an attraction. It becomes more of a go-to location instead of just a quiet little village.
Well, if you compare it to the Jersey Shore, any
Boardwalk.
one that has a boardwalk, it has a certain character to it. It has a certain, late
Commercialization.
commercialization, late
Oh,
night
that's a good one.
drunk pizza.
So yeah, are we gonna have to
all
pick
that.
park dumps?
Versus a community where you have
This is important.
Dump
This is the
trucks
big
on
stuff
the-
right here.
Kathy knows who to pay,
Yeah. No, seriously, I think this is one of, they're not only turning to us as a body, as a zoning board, but they're saying, we are just reflecting out who our village is, what our village is. We always take the pulse of what's going on around here in order to try to figure out, we're listening to people, we're listening to neighbors saying how they feel about certain, projects and everything. So we're listening to everything, and what do they anticipate? What have they told us that they anticipate?
It's always our job to interpret the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law.
Right, and so this is down to a level, I think that's very important, because it sends to them a message as to what Cold Spring is, and maybe while people are always invited, what we don't want to become by just, it potentially, it becomes like a super attraction.
Yeah, it's the magnitude of the project, I think. I mean, I think a lot of people would love to see a trail between Cold Spring and Beacon. And I, for one, think that, I feel proud to live in a village where people wanna visit. And I would feel proud to live in a village where there was a lovely trail that people would come and visit and enjoy. But to me, it's just the magnitude of this project.
I think that's it, because I have no problem coming. I've already said,
When you say magnitude, what do you mean?
Tall fences, elevated walkways out on the water, the potential of commercialization, because I don't know, I can't remember where I read things, but, you know, reading things like for a while, there's gonna be plenty of money, but what happens when the money runs out, and would they do concession stands, those kinds of fears of commercialization of the project.
It's just a spectacular attraction. It really is. It's like going to, Playland and seeing like one of the great assets of Playland.
So,
Saying in a way, it's too good.
Yeah, it's too big. It's too big for this community nestled in the mountains. And again, I have no problem coming. I have no problem, thousands of people walking in front of my house. I don't, never did. I even said to my sister-in-law, I said, if the fence is gonna be that high, I said, just build the sidewalk in front of my house. I said, this way everybody can enjoy the river. Instead of just the people on the
Oh, yeah.
boardwalk. I mean, and it's not that I'm against, there are areas of the trail that are really nice and they're not as impactful once you get like to the rise and beyond, or even beyond Little Stony Point, where it's just traffic going back and forth. But again, how many people have ever driven down from Dutchess Manor down the hill towards Cold Spring, and you come out and you see that huge view of the river looking south? And it's pretty spectacular. Well, you're not going to see that once you get to 30, 40 feet above. You won't see it because it'll be straight stanchions going down.
so it's like how we balance things a lot, and you would talk about balancing things. And it's as though what feels uncomfortable to me is that the village life is way down on the hill to producing this wonderful attraction for the entire East Coast, and so it feels as though the balance is skewed. See, that's where I'm thinking it's too big, it's too balances off, if
It'll
that
have
makes sense.
social effects that in the swamp,
The daily life here.
delicate society that we have now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which almost, I mean, it's not as, I mean, things change, and we all know that things change all the time. Things are gonna change, that's the only thing we know is really gonna happen. However, so I don't want it to sound like we're just saying, oh, we just wanna keep things the same.
No, I know.
know.
We like people come here. I
Yeah.
love seeing people walk in
Yeah,
front of my house.
I,
But there's another really good point, cross comparative. Sometimes you have to look at things in relation from one thing to another. Beacon can handle it.
Yeah.
They're a huge city. Not only that, this is all the way down by their waterfront. So this is not in their neighborhood. This is not in amongst their residences per se. This is all the way down by the riverside where there's a train station and everything that separates everything out. Our housing, our residences go right to the water. And not only that, Beacon has so many inroads and outroads, and they have a interstate right next to it, like within a mile and a half of the train tracks, interstate.
Much more parking at the train station.
yeah.
And their
That's
Main
bigger.
Street will not be, they'll have more people, but the people have to get all the way from down by the dockside, by the train, a mile all the way up to Main Street. And it's not like they walk off a train here and it's not even a half a block and bang, you're in this. You have to say, as they keep saying, Cold Spring to Beacon, we have to look at a cross comparative. And this is why Beacon and Fishkill are not particularly like,
I think they're,
like
half of
worried,
it, yeah.
terribly worried. I mean, because it will bring more business, but it will be less of an impact on the immediate residences.
well, and it'll bring more business that they will get sales tax revenue for, whereas the village of Cold Spring
But-
will not.
And they're also
So-
spread out.
Yeah,
Those businesses are spread out by a mile and a half,
Yeah.
2 miles.
It's along Main Street.
So you have, and by the way, this is the same trail.
Yeah.
So it ends here and it goes up there. So while they can handle that load, maybe we just can't on that volume level. I mean, anyway, my
Is there an
feeling.
intended direction for the people to go? Or is that not? Are people gonna go to
I don't
Beacon
think
and come
so.
I
down?
never saw that, no.
Yeah.
And they talk about different entry points is supposed to help.
Yeah, they'll be entering it in the middle too, 'cause there'll be a train
Yeah.
stop there.
Yeah, the bridge.
Yeah. Which that's good that you can go in the middle and go one way or the other, and so it's not all necessarily gonna come. So we can say that's a good thing. I'm trying to think of good thing. But I mean,
There are great things about it. There
Yeah.
really are. The question is, are we of a size, nestled in the crotch of two mountains with hardly any ingress and egress to handle
Yeah,
this?
I think that's what this board always deals with, right, is it deals with usually issues of scale. Heights of fences, heights of setbacks, square footage on lots. And perhaps the scale is just our comment that to the state of New York, like, we are a small little village and we've had the pulse of this town for X amount of years. And, the scale, please be cautious with our little village,
Mismatch in scale between, the overpowering, effects, like
Mhm.
imagine dropping a big rock in a little pond, get these waves going
Yeah.
out.
I love tourists. I love sharing where I decided to live. I love the fact that they fund all these restaurants that we can go to because they can
Yeah,
survive
that's
because of our
true, yeah.
tourists. But you make great comments on, I love zip lines. Should we put a zip line down Main Street over the top of Main Street, down to the river? That wouldn't be a good use of scale in like our community. So like, there's things I love boardwalks, but it's that scale, for this community,
And the two terminuses of it,
Yeah.
one is in a position to really handle that heavy flow and to
Yeah.
spread it out across a broad spectrum of Beacon.
Yeah.
But that's not the case in this.
We're not set up, we couldn't if we wanted to, like, we can't widen
Well,
our
we can't
lanes,
because geographically, it's not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. we couldn't on the river.
Wasn't there some talk about not having the trail even be in Cold Spring?
Well, I
Start
think the best
somewhere
idea
else?
is if it did start at Little Stony Point.
Yeah. That
They are
was-
gonna increase the parking there. They will also have parking up at Duchess Manor, where it would take nothing then for you to park there, and if you just wanted to go down to Little Stony Point, or they would take you right to the trail side. And what it will do is, if people really still wanted to get off Cold Spring and walk it, they could, and they could get right on the trail within 6 minutes, because it takes me about 6 minutes to walk to the train station.
Yeah, the way they do now, down Fair.
They can get right down to Fair Street and
The
jump.
sidewalk.
Well,
And again, it's not to just say, oh, it's not in our backyard. We already have a lot of people. I don't mind it. I like it, I mean, like, when we first moved here, I first moved here in like 2000, the place was a dead zone in the winter. You got used to thinking that most of the shops, 50% of them would be closed
Yeah.
easily.
Well, Are we
Well,
getting somewhere, Eric?
Yeah, I'm taking notes of everything you're saying. I'm not as pessimistic as as the other three of you. When I, when I visited Riverwalk type, attractions in other places, other cities, they're generally deserted. I don't see Americans just being that much into exercise and walking on average. I don't, I'm not so sure that there will be such a crush of people want to walk miles. When they can't get a Slurpee or anything.
Yeah,
So, I'm not quite as worried. Which is not to say I dismiss the possibility. I just think it's a lower risk than the rest of you are, are assuming.
well, so then if
Just
not very
subjective.
many people come, then there's gonna be this huge fence and elevated walkway for,
Well, there'll be a great, benefit for those of us who live here.
that's,
Will be,
that don't live on Fair Street and wanna see the water. I'm just,
well,
Or any place.
No, I
along
know.
those shorelines.
no, you're right. Yeah,
Fair Street.
the general notion of it is great. It's just that, oh, but it's the, people call it like a Disneyland attraction. It's that aspect of it, and that concerns me.
I don't think it's on the level of Disneyland. For
I know it,
the average person, it's still just, it's just landscape. So, I mean, even now, how crowded does Dockside get? Dockside, you can walk in breathtaking scenery, and it's just never that crowded.
well, I don't know. I never go on the weekends. Do you go on the weekends?
Occasionally,
Yeah, and so it's not that crowded on the weekends?
no. It's manageable.
Yeah.
It is definitely a crowd, but
Mhm.
it's not, I haven't gone down during the absolute peak, but we had a few of those days this summer.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, again, is supposed to have an opinion on it, and what would make it less of a wonderment is
Mhm.
if they just put everything in it.
Yeah.
You know,
I wish we knew more about the fence, what it would be made of, whether it's transparent or opaque. That was
Somebody
something,
was commenting on tonight's webinar that they love the new rendition of the fence. I don't know when they meant, when new was, whether it was whether it's in this book or whatever. They're supposedly, it's not chain link anymore.
well, it's too bad they didn't specify where they saw it, so everybody could see it.
You know, yeah, it was just some person commenting on project.
Oh, so this was the,
Comment.
Comment
Tonight,
period. You
yeah,
saw it,
I was
right.
listening tonight. It started at 6 o'clock tonight, and somebody was commenting that the new fence looked great. Which I don't know what fence they were talking about.
well, the other thing is I was listening pretty much from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock with some of the state park people, and I know most of the players. And they had most of the people who were actually in the organization, you know, coming in and speaking and not necessarily mentioning, you know, the personal,
Yeah.
you know, position on it and what their affiliation was.
Yeah.
So, that's why if they were if they were gonna be so helpful to say, you would think they would tell you.
Oh,
But still they have not yet done here. I would say at least 50% of the people were people who were connected
yeah.
that I heard speak, because I know the names.
Yeah, tonight, so I recognize a lot of the names as contractors.
Could we suggest that there be a artist rendering of
That's a good point.
what we-
That's a great point. That could just put everything to rest
And it would be, I would,
and not have them say, oh, well, we're still working on it.
yeah,
No, just give the best one you got so far. You know, because, you know, it was supposed to already be in here because this was the final comment period. So,
it's hard not to feel, manipulated is the right word, that we're being sold.
it's misrepresented a little
Okay.
bit because I just wish that, you know, you're saying, this is your final time. I remember I asked somebody, I don't want to start getting into the words really quickly here. But I
You
said,
get in
is this
trouble.
the final, I said, this DGIS, is one of the big aspects is view shed, you know, let alone transportation, impact, population, da, da. Yes, view shed. So is this the last time to say it? Yes, it is. And then what goes on from there? What, can anybody have further input? Obviously, we know the writings can go until March, but beyond that point, they said, once it's approved, it's only like, well, whether they change the railings from a composite to a wood or something like that. It's done, it's over. The input's over. So one of the great things we could do is give us your best rendition because it was supposed to be in here. And we want to have, because otherwise, you know, we're just sort of floundering because we don't have anything. And I would say a rendition that's on the east shoreline, both at water level and at, you know, maybe 70 feet, because I think that's first opportunity you would get to, if you were 70 feet tall in Mayor's Park, that you actually look down and actually see a small percentage of the river, not having to look through a structure. Because I did a little scoping of it with a trajectory set, and I was actually gonna have somebody, an architect do the rendition.
Because you said a view from ground level or water level?
Both a view from the ground level, an artist rendition of the impact, say, and make it just easy, Mayor's Park, because
Yeah. Yeah,
that's ground level.
yeah,
And it is virtually
park.
water level, because it's the
Yeah.
only thing that's keeping the water from getting in there is the train. So, and, you know, another level from the east shore, say at 70 feet, you know, or roughly in that vicinity. So you want a low level, and if you were up at 70 feet, what percentage in our minds as we look down will it still take away view shed of the water?
Why 70 feet? You mean for people up on the, you know, on the
Yeah.
islands?
Well, yeah, sort of even on Grandview or anything like that, you know, just these are residences. They're not necessarily mine. But I just trying to see how it just plays out, that's all. And I just think it would be upfront, you know, and that's all.
Let me read the notes that I've taken and, they're just a skeleton of, ZBA has no direct application, but it is adept at balancing benefits and detriments, especially, and especially with an eye to community character. Um, So, here we are concerned about visual impact and bulk, which is
Mhm.
again, one of the core concerns that we bring to every application. Under the heading of harms to community character, we have, concern about traffic, crowds, commercialization, and in general, mismatch in scale between the social effects of your trail and the ability of Cold Spring to absorb them without change in a terrible way. Views, and, the residences in Cold Spring abut the trail. Their trail runs right adjacent to residences, unlike in Beacon. Beacon can handle the social effects spill over from the trail, Cold Spring cannot. So it's unfair to assimilate the two of them as equivalent.
Did you just reference the beacon there? I missed that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's, I'm sorry.
So, and then those are the, basically the concerns, the negatives. And, that's given the pessimistic case.
Yeah.
And I would balance it by citing, I'm particularly, um, um, particularly impressed by the, creation of, like, I mean, community character can be improved, and, there can be an effect on community character that's positive. You know, there can be change that's
Mhm.
positive.
Mhm.
We would be getting that here with a connection to Dockside, getting that with. So finally, you can bicycle, which is I used to be a bicyclist. I don't, not, it's possible. Cars everywhere.
Yeah,
and
also steep,
no
no
shoulder.
shoulders.
No shoulders, hills everywhere you go, once you get out of the center of the village.
Yeah.
So finally, with opportunity
Bicycle.
to bicycle.
Yeah.
Finally, an opportunity for seniors and, people with disabilities to hike, you know,
Mhm.
at a level that they can handle. Nowhere else can you do that here. Car-free transportation for the first time between Beacon and Cold Spring. A new measures to mitigate vehicle and pedestrian crowding, which won't happen if your trail's not built.
The additional parking.
New parking, and the things listed in the section on traffic light.
Yeah.
We talk about eliminating a few of the parking spots right at the corners, the intersection of Main and 9D, which actually, right now you can park practically right up to the corner. That's actually a violation of state law. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to have, there's a certain footage of, it's supposed to be left clear. We're letting people park there. They shouldn't be. But those would be eliminated to improve traffic flow around the corners.
So is that what they meant when they said they'll eliminate some parking on
Yes.
Main Street? Okay,
Right. And they'll
That's-
make
yeah,
like
that's a good
turning
idea.
lanes, like
Yeah.
turn Where you're gonna turn.
That's great.
You can pull to the side and then
Mhm.
turn. And the new public restrooms at Dockside, it's further effect on community character.
that's, I would think
And then
that's
it's
all.
emergency services we
Yeah.
talked about, and we propose, I mean, a utopian suggestion is that the parks police open an office
Oh, there you go.
up here and, make it their business to respond to emergencies and the increased trash that village will have to handle. So I can put all of this into a memo.
Well, this is excellent. Eric, thank you for putting that together.
That, so I have this thought, do you know if anyone at the village has looked at the potential costs to the village? Even, looking at their numbers and costs in terms of trash and I don't know why I'm so stuck. I think I got a big electric bill today, so I'm stuck on electricity. Yeah. That if anyone, because I'm just really curious, and then we know, and then we could propose ways to deal with those costs. I'm not saying like, just do it, just say that it's bad, it's to do it so that the village would know what it's getting into and then
I'm not
propose
I don't
ways.
think that's been done yet, but I bet it's on the agenda. I mean, that's part of
Okay.
why the trustees hired this planner.
Oh, okay.
The planner who will, that's kind of bread and butter for him, is to look at something like that and then come up with dollars and cents about what it might.
Okay.
uh,
Could we put it in there though, that is
recommend.
that outside our?
No.
Okay, I just, because, but I don't want it to sound negative because I think that, oh,
So
we go to the county and say, look,
financial, a more, kind of, explicit financial accounting of costs that the village will have, new
Yeah.
costs.
the new costs and strategies to, pay those costs.
And then pass that information on to Carmel.
Carmel? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The last thing I would say, and I know you're typing some though, not that, you don't have to be listening right now, that because this is part of what they're doing, is the idea of an alternative route, if it really
Oh.
comes down to that, because that's what people, there's a lot of, so we look at what is a potential alternative route. And I personally don't mind Fair Street, and I think Fair Street is level. And the way we have constructed the state park over there, we can get wheelchairs in and everything and get it right, as well as bikes, right to the trail.
Yeah.
So I'm just simply saying that there is that alternative, and it's relatively level and it's not too traffic intensive.
Is there a bike lane on Fair Street?
Not yet. They will probably construct both a bike lane and just a walk lane, is what I
Yeah.
understand.
They,
Because the traffic, the parking will be eliminated.
they seem to imply that Fair Street is off the table. When they talk about that alternative, they say, the idea met with fierce community
Oh,
resistance.
Oh, the community doesn't want it.
And that's the only time they say that in the whole,
I can say to you as a lawyer, and when you're writing this without knowing that you have opposition, you can write anything you want.
Oh.
And because it's really not going to get criticized. And so what they're doing is, what lawyers do is they push towards a goal of where they want to be. So what they do, because they did this up at Dutchess, who's looking on the screen, by the way? So they did this up at Dutchess Manor. I know all the insides of it because I'm with State Parks, and the net of it is they had a specific goal, specific interest. They made it very clear So they were downplaying every other alternative. They were like, you know, this is the possibility, but it's no good for this reason. So therefore, the best thing is this one right along the water.
So you would advocate taking another look at Fair Street or keeping it.
Open as an
On the
alternative,
table.
yeah. You know, especially until you have an idea of what this walkway will look like, you know, from the street level, from anybody along the shoreline level. People might say, oh, well, no, I don't want, I'd rather have it along Fair Street than to lose, than to lose the view shed.
Oh,
The big advantage of that is eliminating the fence.
yeah.
When you see it, I think you'll appreciate it. And I can guarantee you 100, first of all, there were several people who mentioned what I had mentioned, even though I didn't go online. I promised my brother I wouldn't say anything negative, and especially since I know most of the players. So the only thing I'm going to do is write something, not negative, but simply say, where is the visual impact?
Yeah.
You know, where the comment that we're supposed to make about view shed. So just, you know, where is it? And, I mean, I lobby with these guys up in Albany and everything. So if I got up there and started saying something, my sister-in-law was, he texted me, she's like, will you please something say? And then my brother got on my case. He goes, you're the president of Little Stony Point. You've got to say something. And I said, listen, I said, I've got to be upfront with you. Look, if I saw what the impact would be, if you put it in here, I would talk about it. I would know what to talk about, but I can't talk about something I can't see.
Yeah, that's, I have that. You request clear artist rendering of the fence.
Yeah.
Soon ASAP, showing views from both sides at ground level and 70 feet.
From the east side looking west, meaning from east, they'll do everything to try to, I'm telling you, be on the east side. That's where we are, Cold Spring. We're on the east side of the shore. Okay? And that's how, what we're impacted by. But that's also people, all the hikers who come off the train and walk up Fair Street.
Yeah.
They're looking out there. They take pictures, as you say, right there. When they come to Little Stony Point, that building that we built, you know, with grant money and our own hands, because we had to do it in kind. But that has beautiful views right where that building is. And we measured out what it would be, and it would be completely obstructed by the fence that they proposed.
Wow.
So we wouldn't see the river. We would see, and especially as you're looking to West Point, which is almost due south, or, you know, due southeast, but it's on a linear projection. The posts that are needed to reinforce and hold that in the winds and everything, they've already shown us what it was. And all it was, boom, 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 boom. You couldn't see the river.
Every 6 feet, probably they're gonna need posts, yeah.
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 They got to
The
hold it.
wind, it's been so windy this winter.
Oh, how about the, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess I go back to the trade-off or the balancing notion that you lose that view or part of it. Not gonna be ruined, but it'll be diminished. And what do you gain in terms of view? You gain what you'll see from the trail itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't mean to be totally negative on this, like, you know, to a certain degree, we're told to give comments and it's easy to give negative comments. But to a certain degree, it's an amazing opportunity, but like, when I say scale, I like a good correlation could be like, look at this wonderful scale of Breakneck and the people that climb that. But how dangerous and how chaotic is it before they had people there helping and guiding? And so I would just hope that this project is, what are we gonna do to necessarily change it? That they follow through with, like, when they're at the base of Breakneck and you have people guiding, be careful, don't go up in flip flops, don't do this. That the scale of this thing is followed through with. Garbage collection is taken care of, that there's upkeep, that it's maintained, that all those things are followed through on. I don't know how you enforce that or get that.
Yeah.
That courtesies are taken to, we have an opinion on these things. Because things that are not, that's, you know, everyone can throw up a piece of infrastructure and then leave and then, you know, it's a white elephant.
Yeah.
But I would, I mean, bicycle, you can ride a bicycle anywhere. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to ride a bicycle. There's a lot of wonderful things about this trail, you know.
Yeah, and, I mean, if we look at track record, there really is no, I can't think of any time when a state park or a scenic Hudson property or, Scenic Hudson development has fallen to ruin. I mean, they're just not in the habit of letting, of building
that doesn't
something,
happen?
building, I mean, when have you seen a Scenic Hudson on one of their properties, just like fall to pieces?
Yeah, I'll add something to that, because it is true that, you know, I think when they build it, it's a pretty strong,
They're gonna spend $500 million on it.
it's gonna be a pretty strong group behind it. That much I do, you know,
It's gonna be a flagship of the state park system. And, they just, you don't
Yeah.
see those things on, in New York City in the seventies maybe, but never at any other time have I seen in New York State. So, and by the way, I go to Scenic Hudson parks and hiking trails all the time, always deserted. They're
Yeah.
in immaculate condition and they're deserted. So-
This
That's
is
interesting.
exactly what I was gonna say. You were just saying, Dockside is, you know, it's a beautiful place, right? You said it, and it's not many people going down there. So my flip side argument to that is why build this other structure? And, you know, take away what is peace and serenity for people who are on the shoreline, and you're gonna say, basically, the ones who are gonna get it are those who go onto the trail. So you no longer can just get it from the shoreline, you have to go onto the trail to get it, which, you know, that's where my objection lies. If it's as impactful as it was shown to be
Yeah.
during renditions. So my concern is that they put the trail in, and I'm sure it'll be used more than Dockside, you know, is currently. But Dockside is a good example. And most of the people who come here, they go to the mountains. They go to the mountains to hike. They don't go to Little Stony Point to hang out by the river, you know, that often, that often. I would say less than 3% of the people, of all the people who get off the train, they want to go in the mountains, they want to hike. And I was up there today, and you cannot believe how wide those trails. When I was first hiking them only about 30 years ago, the paths were like this wide, and there was grass growing over and everything. And you say, gosh, why doesn't anybody else do this? You know, and to me, it was like sort of lonely and sad. Now there's tons of people. And now you pick the times when you go, but there's also the trails are 30 yards wide and trails around trails. So there becomes an issue of denuding of the natural fauna because it's trample. So in any event, that aside,
So,
most of the people will go to the mountains. They do now.
so you're saying that you're pretty confident that is gonna be kept up and be kept in good condition?
I agree with you,
Yeah,
Mary.
I'm reasonably, I mean, we can't
So
just
that's
like,
good,
yeah, I
that's
wouldn't,
really good.
I think it would be unreasonable to veto the project just because of fear of that. The
Yeah,
fear
I'm not-
that-
In terms of that, it's but that's where I'd be really curious about the ongoing cost to the village. So that would be really helpful,
Yeah.
because they seemed in the information that I read, really dismissed that. I felt just the parts that I was able to read.
Maybe on the emergency levels and police response.
Traffic, the garbage, lighting. Yeah, there's a lot, I mean. But maybe that's.
But you know, there are so many players in this that's why, I mean, one is going to buttress another. And not only that, there's going to be a sort of a name on it. You know, there was a big benefactor behind all this.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of family pride in that. And,
Yeah. No, it's just to, you know, just circling and surmising, you know, the comments just in the sense of you know, there's a lot to scale that
There is.
could be worried, and we should put those comments down. They're asking for our comments.
oh, yeah.
Provide those comments. There's a lot of wonderful things that this thing's gonna provide us, so I think we give them a well-rounded document and.
Yeah.
There's
Not
something to
fair.
the point of under guessing, you know, what may happen, you know, or putting too much faith in it, because we don't see it, we don't know specifically yet,
Yeah.
but it is on a big enough scale to be concerned about how will it all be maintained?
Yeah, I picked up enough garbage with Boy Scouts in Little Stony Point to know that they haven't always been perfect in.
So you
maintaining
probably
everything.
saw me there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll draft a memo. We can meet in 2 weeks. We have a regular meeting 2 weeks from now. And the deadline is the end of the month, so we can together review the draft.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for putting all that together and great ideas. I mean, see, it takes a few people to really think from different angles, because this is a rare type of, item before us.
Yeah, one of a kind.
Nice to get to comment on it, yeah.
The only other business is 2 sets of minutes. So let's start with August 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I guess only Mary Ann, of the present company, only Mary Ann and I were there.
Okay, pressure's on, Eric.
So that's August. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one.
Well, now that reads good to me. I wasn't in August.
Well, I don't remember that.
I saw
No, I
eat
did.
salad at at Murphy's.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Actually, the only suggestion that I have to my submission is, I could elaborate on the question regarding the maintenance, because I feel like that's still kind of vague. On the second page, she responded to Leslie's question regarding maintenance. Maybe I could just elaborate on what the maintenance question was about.
Yeah, I don't, I vaguely remember that. What was the complaint?
I think it
Oh,
was
right,
the appearance and
yeah,
the aesthetic of the
trailer.
village. Yeah, well, I think it was regarding the trailer, but overall the village's aesthetic maintenance, if there's a standard and if that standard has to be actively met, I think she was inquiring about something like that.
a nuisance.
So, yeah.
right.
That-
That's commonly called like a nuisance law.
Yeah, it would be nuisance law that would probably be both enforced by the building inspector and the police. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know the code for it, but there is
More than
code,
enough.
because you always want to guard against a nuisance.
How about saying something like, question, whether the condition of the trailer violated anything in the village law? Or just violate the village law?
Yeah, I owe you guys a lot. They're coming eventually.
And then I wanted, on page 1, right under board comment, the first 2 sentences are sort of the same thing about the length of the fence.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking, why don't we collapse? In fact, maybe just delete the first one,
Uh-huh.
just say that I attempted to confirm the length of the fence.
Okay.
That would cover both.
So-
And then,
And why don't you put a comma, no, I was about to say, will the fence run the full length of lot 2? Because that's what you were getting at with regards to that, right?
So combine them rather than delete them?
well, yeah.
No, you think, because you were there, but I see what it's being said here, what your mindset was. So if this is more than just the length that's being given here, it's the reason why you were thinking about it.
Yeah, that's right. I think I would. The drawing was unclear.
I can combine them instead if that's,
Yeah.
if it gives context and then reason, yeah.
Yeah, attempted to confirm the length of the fence and whether it would run the full width of both lots.
Period, and the survey indicates it's marked at 114 feet in length, or
Yeah, was that his answer? Do you remember, Abigail? What, this 114.43, is that him answering about the length or?
I think,
it's on the survey.
What's it-
I think that's what we added up on the plan.
and I think his answer might have been different, which is why.
Oh, okay.
But I can
Okay.
include his
Well,
answer that,
what John just said was fine too, yeah, the
Okay.
period, and then on the survey, it's marked as 114.
Yeah.
Then I think we need, anytime we have a workshop in the minutes, we have to end by talking about the board setting the public hearing date.
okay,
That's something we have to do by vote. We have to it's a formal action by the board, so it's kind of thing that needs to be like.
We moved to that, for that too.
We agree.
Maybe a little comment.
So, yeah, just that's right before adjournment.
Okay.
Something like the board agreed to hold a public hearing on the application on September 10, 2004.
okay.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
That's just the two of you, or can
Um,
I do it? I
no, I think
remember
we
this
can all
guy
vote.
coming before us,
We
yeah.
can all vote, because,
This is the trailer up against the mountain over here, yes. He didn't like me.
so I make a motion to approve as amended.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous.
So this was interesting on the Depot Square. You remember we talked about the special use? There was a provision about, you remember we were talking first about a use change, but then we were also thinking, no, there's also a special use year to year or something like that?
Whether the use variance could be tied to the lease
Yes,
and then expire with the lease.
that's right.
That's what yeah.
Which was more flexible than what we were originally thinking, right?
Um,
And less of a burden, or he still
It
has to.
wouldn't, so it wouldn't run with the land like a typical variance.
Right, good.
And thus we might be more willing to grant.
That's right.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
would be,
I haven't checked with the attorneys whether that's possible. Seems plausible, so we certainly can attach conditions to a variance.
my understanding is when you make an application like that, sometimes it's a year to year one where they have to re-up. And they basically come in and they make themselves known that this is a change of use in the area. And it's really sort of a pro forma thing, but it makes them aware that this is not, forever, but I'll have to find it. I know that's out there.
That'll be further down the road, quite a way.
And assuming we even get there,
Right,
because.
before we have to think about that.
Got it.
Now, the other minutes,
November
this
26th.
is, yeah, this is more recent. And everybody was there.
How dare we say everybody was there when you were.
Most important piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Anyone see any correction?
I don't. I was gonna ask you before, but this has nothing to do with you. Did we ever get an answer, like, for instance, if a landowner has sort of grandfathered in, say 40% coverage on the property, and they wanna, say, take down the portion like they did one alongside the garage and overhang, and build into the house, which would have been within the confines of the setbacks. Say you're at 40%, or say you're at 15% over. Did the attorney ever say, because I suggested that you can't just, take that down and throw it over to another side, property, at least without review. Because,
I never got, an official opinion from the attorney on that.
you know what I'm saying? Because it's one thing if it's like 3% or 5%, but it'd be another thing if it was, and there are instances where it's 40%. And
Well, that's with that question is with the trustees now. They will consider,
that actual question we put before them as part of this?
yes, the memo, that we gave them, that the ZBA gave them about suggestions for improving the chapter 1, 3, 4. That was the primary point.
Okay, good. I thought so. That's why
Yeah.
it's like floating in the back of my head. I do so many
Yeah.
things like, I
Yeah,
read
clarify
this, I
that.
was
Yeah.
like,
The best way to resolve
how'd
it,
that turn out?
yeah, but they haven't gotten to it yet. But the best way for that question, that ambiguity to be resolved is for them to legislate an answer.
And
that would be so-
And I really think that it should go before us, at least to be, for the public to know it's being looked at.
I
'Cause
agree.
you just can't take a non-conforming use and say, I don't want to hear anymore. I'd rather really build onto my house. It's changing things. It has an impact, even if it's within the setbacks.
moving the coverage around on the lot.
Yes. Because it might be 20% and another, because a lot of these lots are small. And anyway, it wasn't like I wanted to stop them from doing it. It's just like, you have to go before us for a review. There has to be oversight.
Because I don't think right now we have the sufficient ground to deny somebody. If they challenge us in court, I really don't know if they have a lawyer who knows.
With the language that we currently have.
Right, the current
Yeah,
one, we
with the
just don't
current
have something to stand
I
on.
agree with you. When you read the language, I was like, I said, that's just not. I was thinking that there was something else out there that backed my point, but I couldn't
I'll
find.
let you know what the trustees.
I think it's
say about
important
that.
to address it.
Well, it's partly what they think. I mean, how much do they want to regulate this situation?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, of all the things we have to come before us, but anyway, I'm delaying all of us for a good evening.
Abigail, once
Thanks for
update
all
the
that.
minutes from
That's great
August.
stuff.
You
I
send me
love
the
hearing.
file, I'll add my signature to it.
Like, oh my God.
Perfect. Do you guys want to move for that?
Yeah, we need
Instead of
to
minutes?
vote on the
Oh,
last
right.
minutes.
Which one? Oh,
Somebody wanted,
I move that we accept the meeting minutes, for November 26th as written.
I second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Okay. Thanks, Abigail, for catching that.
Okay.
I moved to adjourn.
Oh, I'll second that.
All in favor?
No, I just didn't see any more business and Boston College is playing Harvard at.
Oh, for
tonight.
heaven's sake.
That's a big match.